Millions of Americans are waking up to the fact that the Federal Reserve is bad. But very few of them can explain why this is true. For decades, an unelected, privately owned central bank has controlled Americans' currency, run our economy, and has driven the U.S. government to the brink of bankruptcy. It operates in great secrecy. It has never been subject to an audit, and yet the action it takes have an impact on every single American. It is an institution designed to drain wealth from the U.S. economy and ultimately from the American people, and transfer it to the ultra-wealthy. Have you ever wondered why a sovereign nation such as the United States has to borrow United States dollars from anyone? Have you ever wondered why a sovereign nation such as the United States does not even issue its own currency? Have you ever wondered why we allow groups of unelected private bankers to run our economy? These are important questions, and I'm going to give you 7 reasons why we need to end the Federal Reserve. Starting off with number 1. The Federal Reserve creates money out of thin air. This fact comes out in congressional hearings, and yet the American people just don't care about it. During the Joint Economic Committee hearing on Capitol Hill, U.S. Representative Ron Paul directly confirmed Federal Chairman Ben Bernanke about this $1.3 trillion. As Ron Paul described how this $1.3 trillion was just created out of thin air. All Bernanke could do was nod his head. Why? Because this is the truth. Number 2, the huge predator megabanks that now dominate the U.S. banking system use the Federal Reserve as a tool to make money. One of the ways they do this is called the U.S. Treasury carry trade. What happens is the Federal Reserve lends huge amounts of money to these megabanks for next to nothing. And then these megabanks use all that cash to buy U.S. government debt. This little trick helped enable 4 of the big U.S. banks, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, to have a perfect quarter with 0 days of trading loss during the first quarter of 2010. Wouldn't you like to have a perfect batting average? Number 3, the Federal Reserve manipulates the U.S. economy by setting national interest rates. By keeping interest rates high or low, the Federal Reserve has the power to create economic growth or destroy it. They have the power to inflate massive bubbles and pop them. Most Americans give way too much credit and blame to presidents like Bush or Obama for how the economy is doing. The truth is, they don't have much control over the economy compared to the Federal Reserve. Number 4, the Federal Reserve also controls the national money supply. They pump trillions into the economy or pull trillions out without being accountable to anyone. This has devastating consequences. For example, after the U.S. stock market crashed in 1929, the Federal Reserve continued to contract the money supply. Many analysts believe that this was one of the key things that participated in the Great Depression. 5. The Federal Reserve has become far, far too powerful. The reality is that those running the Federal Reserve are not elected and yet have enormous amounts of control. In fact, Ron Paul said on MSNBC one time that he believed that the Federal Reserve is more powerful than Congress. Number 6. The Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke wants to completely eliminate minimum reserve requirements for banks. Fractional reserve banking has always been a way that the bankers have conned the public, but now Bernanke wants to get rid of this pretense of reserves altogether. If this sounds way too crazy to be true, check it out for yourself. It's right on the Federal Reserve's website. Number 7. The Federal Reserve is not accountable to anyone. The Federal Reserve has never undergone a true audit since it was created back in 1913. But shouldn't the American people be able to see what's going on inside the Federal Reserve? Shouldn't we have some way to keep them accountable? After all, they have incredible amounts of power over us. Shouldn't we have at least a little bit of power over them? Unfortunately, the truth is that they desperately do not want to have light to be shined on the shell game that they're running on us. Have you ever wondered if it was just a coincidence that the personal income tax was implemented just about the same time the Federal Reserve was created? Why does the U.S. government have to tax us? Why can't the U.S. government just print up all the money that it needs? Well, the way that our Congress spends money, that'd probably create horrific hyperinflation, but that's a subject for a different video. The point is that the U.S. government should not have to give U.S. dollars from someone else. If you take a few minutes to stop and think about it, in America where there is no Federal Reserve, no personal income tax, no IRS, is not that hard to imagine. Now, if the U.S. government functioned just fine without all of them at one time, then why couldn't the U.S. government function just fine without all of them now? The system we have now clearly is not working. The Federal Reserve was supposed to guarantee that our financial system would be perfectly stable, but in reality, our financial system has become more unstable now than ever. This is James Hendricks with the Black Sheep Report. Subscribe if you're new. Links are below. And don't forget to check us out on Facebook. Our page is Media on 9/11. Thank you.